Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Beyond This, the podcast that opens up the conversations around life, living, spirit, and even death. If we haven't met before, my name is Matilda and I am a professional psychic medium based here in Australia. I've been doing what I do for 20 something years and I absolutely love it. I work as a medium, a psychic, and a spiritual development coach. Today's episode is an incredibly amazing episode where it's going to be full of a conversation that I had with John Edward. John is going to talk about the first book that he has released in 13 years, Chasing Evil, written with Robert Hilland, a former FBI agent who was an FBI agent during the passage of time that this book takes place. It's phenomenal. I actually couldn't put it down over a weekend. Actually, I tell a lie. I listened to the audio because I couldn't wait for my copy to arrive. So we're going to be talking about with John and talking about his Australian tour that's coming up. So I am going to allow that to be most of the episode. As always, I'm going to jump in and do my Patreon shout outs for my new Patreon members. If you don't know about Patreon, what are you doing? Patreon's where it's at. We have a 21-day manifesting challenge going on at the moment. I am often on Coffee Morning on lives. I even hopped on and did some cooking on live the other day. But there's a brilliant community that we have built. There are thousands and thousands of people from across the globe who are learning, communicating, and being that community for each other. We have a laugh, but we also talk about serious issues as well that's going on in the world. So Patreon is where it's at. There'll be a link in my show notes. I have an amazing project coming up in January, which I'm going to release over the next couple of weeks. As always, my Patreon members get it first, but it is Embody. A year of empowered living, integration, alignment, and expansion for all of those people that want to grow a little bit more, learn a little bit more about themselves, do the work, get to a place of empowerment. Now, one-on-one sessions with me, we often dig deep into this, but it's, 1 45-minute session is never enough. With this 12-month course, you get bi-monthly one-on-one mentorship with me. You get monthly group meetings where we talk about the specific topics and workbooks to work through as well, and a community where we will discuss and everyone can meet. We're going to be talking about, like, every month we'll have a separate topic. The first being self-awareness and intention setting, rewriting the inner narrative to recognize and reframe those limiting beliefs. Third month, boundary setting and energy management, which is so important. The fourth month is all about shadow work and where you need to do that little bit of work to get over any of those things that are holding on from childhood. We've got empowered relationships, which is something that I often talk about for those that have attachment issues. We have purpose and passion alignment. We have power of presence, manifestation mastery, resilience and self-trust, voice and visibility, integration and embodiment, and legacy and expansion. This is an amazing opportunity for anyone that wants to commit themselves to 2026 being the year of you and your development, to get out of your rut. And I can't wait. There will be very limited places because obviously with a course this big, I want to make sure that people get value out of it and get what they need. So I will not be offering unlimited spaces, but there will be opportunity for it. So if you are in my Patreon, keep an eye out for that. I believe I will be launching it the first week of November. So we'll get on. We'll do our Patreon shout outs. As always, at the end of the episode, I will have my little run through of predictions that I've made that have happened, the energy coming up, and what you need to look out for the next couple of weeks or so. All right. So, Patreons, thank you. Remember, the $5 membership sponsors the podcast. It's amazing. It means that we don't have to have ads, but there's other levels that give you a lot more in-depth information. So I want to say thank you to BB Kitty, Shay, MB, Jen Mercado. That's probably Mercado. Cara, you've joined for 12 months. Thank you so much. N, Brandy, Loney, who's joined for 12 months. Thank you so much. Terry A.S., who has joined for 12 months. Bree Moon and KC, who has joined for 12 months. You guys rock. Patreon's where it's at. And welcome to our community, because the community is key. Community is where it's at. For those of you that were in the event that I had with Rory Rivers on the weekend, we did our 2026 prediction event. Oh, we were exhausted. I think Laurie and I are still tired right now after that. It was a lot of energy. It was 4.5 hours of an event. I don't think we'd planned it for it to be that long. I think Laurie said it'd be great if we could come in under 5 hours. We did it just a little bit. But the last 30 minutes were Q&As. That will be up in the Patreon store for those that didn't get a chance to purchase it. And for those of you that have purchased it and didn't get to attend, you should have your recording of it and anyone actually, whether you purchased it, attended or not, because not everyone could hang around for 4.5 hours. You will have your recording in an email by, I would say, by Sunday. Please check your junk mail. It will come from a Medium Matilda email address. It often goes into junk. It's not supposed to, but it does. I fight with the company that do it all the time, but keep an eye out for that. That would be amazing. All right, guys. So I got to sit down with John. John is a veteran in the mediumship space for, I think it's 40 years. He has walked the walk so that people like myself can run. He is a phenomenal psychic medium. If you've ever watched him work, it is a privilege. You can catch him on his own platform, which is Evolve TV Plus. I will link in the show notes. This book, Chasing Evil, I will also link in the show notes for you, where you can get it in Australia. And he is touring Australia, so I'll also link his website. How about I just do lots of links for John? I'll also link that in the website, in the show notes, to make sure that you get your tickets. I spoke to him in April this year, and we had our first chat. I felt afterwards that I could have sat and talked to him for ages, and I was kicking myself for some of the questions I should have asked him. And I felt exactly the same after I got off of this recording. I just think that he's one of those guys that you could sit down and talk to for hours. So enjoy this. We're going to talk about Chasing Evil, his book, and we're going to talk about his upcoming tour. Thank you, John, for joining me again. And joining us again today, we have John Edwards. Welcome back to Beyond This, John.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to see you.
Now, we spoke 6 months ago, and you've had a slightly busy 6 months.
Yes. I've had a slightly busy last 4 weeks, to be honest. I released my first book since 2012, and it's been a whirlwind. It's been amazing. It was an immediate bestseller, so I'm blessed. I'm filled with gratitude. A little anxious about this, like coming out and revealing what the content is. But yeah, it's brand new.
I loved it. I literally, the day I had ordered this a month or so back and knew it would take a while. So I jumped straight onto the audio and inhaled it over a weekend. You've written it with Robert Hilland, it's Hilland,
Hilland, yeah.
who he's now, is he retired FBI agent now?
He is a retired FBI agent, but he still has an official capacity working with the government.
Now, you met in rather unusual circumstances.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us about that and how this whole process started?
So because I've been doing this like forever, and like I go way back to the 1900s doing this, I was constantly on morning radio. And he had heard me when he was a police officer on morning radio. And then he heard me again, I believe, when he turned FBI. And he did not like the fact that they were putting me on the radio. He thought this was not real. He thought this was a complete con. He wasn't sure if the radio station was, a part of it or not, but he was determined to kind of take it upon himself to expose me as a fraud. So he came to me under the guise of a very real case. And he was like, you know what? Let's see. So he called my office. My assistant at the time made it feel very urgent and said, the FBI's calling. And I was like, I don't do that. It's not my deal. It's not what I'm interested in. I don't solve crime. There's a whole backstory as to why. One, my dad was a New York City police officer. I really wasn't interested in kind of following his path, but I didn't really see myself as being like a crime guy. But long story short, I treated it like a regular client. He came in and he brought a police officer that was affiliated with the case. And like with a regular reading, you have no knowledge of what's taking place.
Yes.
He brought me evidence that was connected to the woman that was missing, and I did my thing. What he also did in that evidence bag is he had like 9 things. 5 of them were legit and 4 of them were not. So he had gone around to other women in the office and asked for articles that belonged to them, and he used those as his control items.
Yeah.
So during the course of my first experience with him, I did something called psychometry. As you know, psychometry is where you hold on to a person's object and you're able to read the energy. There's 2 types of psychometry. There's objective psychometry and subjective psychometry. So if I was sitting with somebody and I wanted to read for them, I would say, can I hold on to an object that's yours and yours alone? Reading the subject. Objective psychometry, you read the object, which is one of the reasons why I encourage people when you go for a reading, never give the medium a photo of a person who passed or something that belonged to the person who passed, because you could legitimately pick up the vibrations of that and tell a story, but it's not an actual connection and communication.
Yes.
During the course of doing the psychometry, I was able to move away the 4 control items and said, listen, I don't know what this is. It has nothing to do with what these feel like. And I began to give him insights and information about his case. And then that dovetailed into information about him. And then that became information that he didn't know. So he had to go home and ask his parents, which then opened up a whole can of worms, because it was information that when they validated it for him, now all of a sudden his mind was like, wait a second, hold on. He knew nothing about me. And now all this stuff is coming out, and this is in 1998. So legitimately, there was information that came through that was stuff that he can act on. And it was helpful for him. It gave him direction on a cold case and insights on a cold case, kind of like an energetic GPS.
To take that into another direction, we see people on social media that think that they're detectives, claiming to be psychic mediums. You have said in many interviews you did not solve any cases.
Yep.
You gave clues and pieces of a puzzle in order to help Robert move in that direction. And the fact that you gave him a reading and information that he could then verify must have helped him understand things a lot better.
I think it was the beginning of his transformation. It was the beginning of his journey. And to go back, I say openly, I solved nothing. In the same way that, 40 years of doing this work, I can't fix a person's grief. I can't heal their grief. I can give them information. I can give them insights. I can give them what I'm getting. And that could be helpful in them healing their path, right? Helping on their journey. But the person that we're reading has to do the work. We can't do it for them. No different than somebody who's a nutritionist giving you a diet, or a fitness trainer who's giving you a program.
That's what I like.
We still have to do the work.
Yeah, I say that all the time. This connection with Robert has gone on for 30 years and you became good friends over this period of time. Is there one particular story or case that really stands out to you that solidified you working together?
I think when, not to reveal too much because I'd love for people to read the book, but there's a moment where information comes through in the first meeting with him that kind of like threaded the rest of the like years of us working together,
Yeah.
where actual evidence and validation met actual evidence and validation in
Mm-hmm.
his world, and was able to put a serial killer in prison. That probably for me is kind of like that was the one, because that took somebody off the street, that took a dangerous
Yeah.
individual and removed them from walking around and being able to do that again. So that to me was probably the one that I would go to. All of the stories, like any other reading, I hate, and I don't want to. I'm so not putting down what we do, but when we do this a lot, like there's a lot of stuff that happens, and I
Yeah.
jokingly say like I'm gonna write a book one day that's called Borrowed Thoughts, because they are borrowed. They're not our thoughts. They kind of come in and then they go out. So there's these moments where I was like, writing the book with him, and we're going over these stories, and I remember just like thinking like, wow, that's like objectively cool. But in the moment, like I wasn't thinking about it. Like it was like, well, this is what I'm saying, this is what I'm getting. But like to see it told together, within the confines of the book, the whole thing was like a wow for me.
Absolutely, for me too. And you're so right, because when people say, I had a reading with you a year ago and you said, yeah, da, 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 and it happened, and I'm like, I don't remember. It comes in, it doesn't come from me. People
Right.
need to understand that the information that we pass on doesn't come from us. It's not we don't own it.
Right.
We have the privilege of giving the information, but we don't own it. And Robert has since gone on this journey of, I hate to use the word, but awakening or understanding of
A
what
spiritual walkabout, right?
yes, yeah, absolutely. Spiritual walkabout. Has he been able to use those tools? I mean, I'm not asking you to speak for him, but
Right.
use those tools in his work as he's moved forward with his career?
I don't know about his actual work because he has such a high standard for his investigations and what he does. Like he's got a
Mm-hmm.
process. Like his
Yeah.
mind is like a computer. It's pretty amazing, and somewhat overwhelming, to work with because he's intense. But I think that his journey, like him as a person, that hands down, his language has changed. Like listening to him in the interviews was kind of like, there are moments where I felt like a proud dad because he'd be like, I don't know what forces brought us together. And I'm like, oh my God, if the Robert of 1998 could listen to this guy, he'd be
Yeah.
like, what the hell happens to me?
It's like that Freaky Friday. A
Yeah,
little bit.
a
Yeah.
little bit, except it would be with him, decades later.
Writing the book, did you have to get together to write the book to remember the stories? Who kept a track
He did.
of all of
His
this?
notes are insane. His notes are ridiculous,
Oh.
and if you could watch him like tell a story, before we started doing any of the press and media, there's somebody on Evolve Plus. Her name is Melanie Whitney, and Melanie Whitney is a mindful coach, and she's got a whole channel on Evolve Plus called From Mindless to Mindful.
Mm-hmm.
And she and her wife Mecca were at my house, and Bob was there, my cousins were there, my aunt was there, and it was kind of like a pre-book launch kind of get together and celebration. And she jokingly said, "Oh, Bob, I've read the book and I have questions." And the book hadn't been out yet, but I'd given her an advanced reader copy. And he was like, "Oh, you've got questions?" And she said, "Yeah, I've got questions." And he's like, "Okay." And she leaned over, grabbed her phone, because she's a professor at a university level, and opened her Notions app and began to go through like the series of questions. Well, that became like a 2 to 3 hour conversation about the cases. And I watched him extemporaneously just come up with dates, times.
Wow.
Like it was just like, I mean, I personally, I couldn't do it. When you put me there, I'm like, got it, remember it, yep. Or if something was said, like, you said that, I'd be like, I wouldn't say it like that. I would say it like this. I know my symbols. So it was a very interesting moment for me to watch him just like process all his cases. Like it was all up here, dates, people, names, like he was like, this agent first and last name, this agent first and last name, this, this suspect first and last name. And I'm like, we're talking like over two and a half decades like what, 20 years? It's like a lot. It was a lot. I was very impressed. So his notes were ridiculous.
That blows my mind because I can't remember what I had for breakfast most days. So yeah, during the cases that you've dealt with, and during the book, you talk about some dark cases. How do you look at dark energy? Because this is a question that some of my followers that have read the book have asked me. When you talk about dark energy, do you think that dark energy is just a human condition, or does it follow us into the afterlife?
So I think we need to look at it not in the Hollywood cinematic universe, right? Because then immediately our biases kick in. We start thinking of what we know evil to be, what we see evil to be. So when I talk about hell, I don't really talk about hell in the fire and brimstone place. I talk about hell as being a state of consciousness where someone's stuck or trapped, like they're in their own personal hell. And if somebody's got a lower vibration, then they're in the cellar, they're in the basement
Yeah.
of their consciousness. That doesn't mean that there's no steps there, that they can't get out of that. But I feel like sometimes when people are in the physical world, stuck in depression or stuck in addiction, that's a version of what would be deemed the negative energy that someone's navigating, right? So we have the opportunity to move through some of that. But when we're talking about somebody who maybe is mentally ill and legitimately has a personality disorder where they can kill somebody else, that to me emanates that dark energy. Like that is a negative, that is an evil person. Like when somebody can go against humanity and hurt someone else, that to me would be deemed evil. So if somebody's doing something negative, and I don't really care if this is like, in the definition of their God or their government or their religion or their free will, it doesn't really matter. When you're impinging or infringing on someone else's free will and humanity, that to me is dark energy and negativity. So I believe that when somebody transitions, they're no longer that. I believe they're no longer attached to that. I believe that they release that. However, they're still sitting in the understanding of what they did. Yeah. So, and I think that level of, I don't know, atonement, or even that sounds, biblical, but that level of understanding, it's pretty damn deep, right? Yeah. So we don't escape our actions once we get over there. It's kind of like, okay, let's sit and have a conversation about what it was that you did and why you did it and what that meant and how it was a catalyst and it was a ripple effect and what did you teach or learn from that and what is the evolution. So to me, I do think that there is negative or dark energy, lower vibrational frequencies. Now, there are certain mediums, Matilda, that don't believe that there are negative forces on the other side. I kind of believe that there are trickster energies. I kind of believe that there are energies that can mess around with us here. But I feel like if we come from a place of light, if we come from a place of faith, if we come from a place of knowledge, if we come from our own free will of being confident, I feel like we can block that out. But it's when we allow fear to get in, that's when they could utilize that as kind of like a moment of affecting us, because now we are off our game. We're imbalanced. We make choices from that position. So that's how my perspective. And early on in my journey, I had a teacher that said, what's the commodity of our world? And I was like, what do you mean? And I was like, you mean like money? And she said, well, in the physical world, it would be deemed money, but of the world in the universe, what's the greatest commodity? And I was like, I would say love. And she said, no, it's energy. And how somebody programs that energy could be love. It could be fear, right? So who controls the commodity of the energy? So if they want to, mess around with stuff, they can try to, mess around with people. And I think in that kind of capacity, I wrote a whole novel about it. It's called Fallen Masters, right? About the forces of dark and light. Yeah. And I did it in a fictionalized way, basically to show that bad people don't play by rules. Good people kind of play by rules. But if we kind of hold to the good stuff in our heart and hope and kind of keep that and just move forward, progress will happen and transformation can take place. It's a long way of saying yes.
Were there any instances where your reading or information totally conflicted with what Robert thought or the processes he was taking? And you two were at odds with what you were being shown and what he thought?
I don't know if I would say we were at odds. I think there were moments where he would be challenging, where he'd be like, I don't think so, or no, or you said she was going to be there and she wasn't there. Like there was moments of just blunt acknowledgement of what would be perceived as an inaccuracy, which on many occasions turned out to be an accuracy.
Right, yeah.
Like it was actually accurate, but
Yep.
I will say that question came up between me and another medium. So in one of the first cases, I reached out to a colleague who I was really good friends with. She's now passed. Her name is Shelley. And I said to Shelley, I was like, I'm working with this guy and this is the case. And what do you think about this? And she said, I think you're never going to find her. And I said, what? She goes, I think you're never going to find her. I said, well, I actually disagree. I think I disagree with you. And she said, you could disagree with me all you want. She's like, but I don't see her being found. So she passed in 2001. And it is now 2025 and she has yet to be found. However, I just want to put out there that in my very first meeting, my guides showed me that the woman that's missing had breast implants and that it would be very important for Bob to make sure he knew the serial numbers to the breast implants. I did not know that breast implants had serial numbers on them. I learned that in the reading. And I said to him, we have to find this out. There's no reason why my guides would have shown me that he needs to know the serial number of Fran's breast implants, unless that's what was going to be used in some way to identify her at some point.
Wow.
There's no reason for me to know. They could have said she's got, a hip replacement and breast implants. And that would have been a fact. It would have been a validation. But they gave me the hip replacement and the breast implants. And for him to remember this, make sure he knew the serial numbers of those. And I know how they give me information. So because I know how they give me information, that's the thing that makes me hold to the fact that one day she'll be found.
There's a reason for it.
And that reason is, going to be revealed. And it has to be before I leave the physical world. Because if I cross over and Shelley's waiting for me and she's going to be doing that, I told you.
I told you so.
Yeah. An afterlife, I told you so.
I find that fascinating. I've only worked on, through family, been approached about a couple of cases. And one of them in particular was I had to point them towards the telephone. And I didn't know what that meant. And we have to just give the information and let it go. Walk away. That's it. Just give the information. They do their job. And it was the mast cell, the telephone pinging.
Okay.
That found the little girl. And that stays with me because you pass it over and you go, no idea. We've got to trust what we get. We always have to trust what we are being given, whether we look stupid or not.
Always in front of me.
Oh, I need one of those. I've got to get one of those. They're we have to trust, and people that watch us sometimes don't understand that, we have to trust exactly what we're being given. Otherwise we don't have anything. And
that's true.
Stamp my feet up and down and say that all the time.
What I always feel a little bit like, I don't know, triggered by is not really the right word. Annoyed, a light version of annoyed, miffed. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the word is. But when somebody says, oh, that was a good guess. I'm like, a good guess? I'm like, yeah, a good guess? So I have a joke where I'll say when something happens that's like off the hook, ridiculously accurate, I just go, lucky guesswork. Yeah,
I know. It's just
lucky guesswork.
People will just go, oh, that's a good guess, or you must know your information. Do you understand that we work worldwide and every single person is an individual, and the information that we bring through is individual for those specific people? And I think they just think that we sit here just shouting out information until we get a hit.
And speaking of worldwide, you know more about American politics than I do. And I'm not even I live here. I'm like, how does she know this? Why does she know this? Why do you want to know this?
I don't. This is what people don't understand. So many of my predictions will happen completely out of context. And I'll never forget when the last Speaker of the House was sacked and everyone went, that never happens. That never happens. It never happens. It's not going to happen. And it happened. I had no idea who the Speaker was. I had no idea what part they played. But I just get the information.
Right.
I wish I didn't. John, I wish I didn't know so much information.
Oh, I got questions for you.
I'll do that afterwards. The book is out. What's next?
I'm coming to Australia. Yay!
I'm so excited.
If you're listening to this, I'm going to be there my fall, but it's the summer of 2025. So I'm from like late October to early December. I will be in the place that I love to be, which is Australia. So I cannot wait. I can't wait to be back in the energy and feel like I'm home based, like safe.
It's a safe place here, and you're coming
Yes.
to my hometown.
Yes, you told me to come to Bendigo, and I'm coming to Bendigo, right? Am I saying
Yep.
that? Am I saying it correctly?
You are saying it correctly. You're coming to my hometown, so I am really excited. I'm dragging my children.
Wow.
And
okay. Can't wait.
well, they asked. They actually asked because they like a little bit of, someone other than mum telling them.
Right.
Right. that makes a difference.
Right.
And yeah, backup basically. You're doing so many shows over here from the end of October into December, I think. Mm-hmm. Tell me about your live shows, because you're just someone to behold when I watch you work live.
Thank
you have helped me, as I've said before, with my delivery. It's not about what we get, it's sometimes the delivery that we stumble on sometimes. And that's always been amazing. You love live shows. I know it's what you've done for decades. What do you love about it?
I like watching the energetic web get created. And for people that are very observant, if people pay attention, every question and reading is all tied together for the night. So I could do 4 events in the same theater in Adelaide. I could do 4 events night after night after night. They will be 4 very different experiences based upon the questions and the readings. And there's usually a theme. There's usually some type of theme of the night. It's pretty intense and powerful. So me I'm doing the event, but I'm also an observer, right? So I'm kind of watching it happen as it's happening. It's a weird feeling, but I kind of feel like I'm on autopilot. And I love watching the connections. I love watching the people's reactions. So, I mean, private readings are great, but they're different. Private readings for me are intense school for people, because I don't just read. I read and I teach, and I'm looking for the why now at the intersection of me, them, and the universe. And, sometimes they're just what's my grandma's name? And I'm I'm way beyond that, in my profession. If you're sitting in front of me, I want to know, why are you stuck? Why are we talking today? And how am I supposed to help you? Because I know the universe put you in front of me. And my job is to kind of mine for the nugget of that, not just razzle dazzle you with a couple of names and dates.
I love how we work so similarly. It always, because I've never had a reading with you, and I just love how we work so similarly. But the theme in one event, I do mine on Zoom now. I haven't. There's always a theme that runs through, whether it's a name, a job, how somebody passed. Sometimes there's even a connection between 2 people that didn't even know they were there.
Yep.
That I love.
And sometimes it's a really lighthearted and humorous kind of a vibe, and then other times it is the exact opposite, where it's pin dropping serious, and you could hear it. And it's amazing to watch the ushers in the theater, the ushers that are running around with microphones, because they've got a tough job, because they've got to get microphones to the people in the audience so that I can actually communicate with them and everybody can hear. It's interesting to watch them sometimes for me, because they will be so intensely listening to what's taking place, they'll forget that they actually have a microphone in their hand, that they need to go give it to somebody. But yeah, I love the live events. I've been doing them since I'm a kid, legitimately since I was in my 20s. And it's it's a cool thing to do. And I get bored pretty easily. So if I'm doing like just private readings, I even need to change that up. Sometimes when I start a private reading with a person, like I might do their numerology. I might look at their, I might do like, I might look at their astrology, even though I'm not an astrologer, but like, I'm going to pull from all the things. Sometimes I'll throw cards. Like I love, tarot's my first love. And I've got like 3 decks of cards that sometimes I'll work with, all looking for like mining for that nugget. But it's really just the key to unlock the person's energy to get in, to allow whatever's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes the big events or the live events are more about the person that doesn't get a reading, that understands what's going on.
Always.
They enjoy it a little bit more because they're not then going over what's been said in a reading or something like that.
Yeah, I will tell you that if we look in Bendigo that first night and I read for a family, I guarantee you, once I move away from that family and I move into somebody else, at the end of the night, if I go back to the first family that I read, I lost them for a good 20 minutes to a half hour. They did not pay attention to anything else. They are now focused on solely what did or did not come through, who did or did not come through, why they did or did not say the thing that they were supposed to say. Like all the normal human expectations that kind of come in. Different when you're not read. When you're not read, you're listening to everybody's question. You're listening to everybody's reading. And you're a participant. And that's how those in spirit get us to evolve. That's how they do it. Just learning and getting people to have these little light bulb moments by watching somebody else get read, watching this person's question and going, you know, the guys get dragged by their wives, sometimes by their kids, you know, but all of a sudden they're leaving differently. They're going like, oh, I like this guy. He's normal. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not what I thought it was going to be, or he was a smart ass, or whatever it is that they're going to say at the end. Hopefully positive things.
There are some, I always think live events need to be educational. They're not entertainment. And we talked last time about one that when you were traveling Europe and Ireland, and they had everything planned and it was more glitz, glamour, entertainment. And
they had lighting cues and music. They had lighting and music cues already preset.
Yeah.
How would one have that? One can't have that unless you know exactly who you're going to be reading, which smells a lot like not being legit.
Yeah, absolutely. When I walk into a room or open a Zoom, I have no idea. And I try and explain to people that often there's a vicarious reading that will happen. It will be a name that's mentioned. It will be a job that's mentioned, but the actual in-depth stuff, the stories, will be for the person that I'm reading.
Correct.
And I think that's an important thing for people to understand. If anyone listening wants an experience to understand the afterlife, understand that continuation of consciousness, going to watch you live is something that everyone, I think, should.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Sorry, go ahead. Have you had the experience where you recognize what you're not in your career yet? Like, have you had the moment where you go, oh yeah, I'm not that. Like, that's not for me.
Definitely what I don't want to be, or what I don't want to come across as. And I think for a period of time, I went the complete opposite and held myself back because I didn't want to be something. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I had an interview with we'll call it a production company, and they're very intense on like high level spiritual teaching at a level that in that moment of conversation, they were like, well, what do you do on Evolve Plus, and what do you do in your community? I'm like, well, it's educational, and hopefully I'm getting people to evolve with the information and the people that are there.
Yeah.
And then they said to me, well, what would you equate that as? And I was like, well, I said, I guess the comparison is what you guys were doing would be at a university level. I was like, and I'm working at more of an elementary school level, and that's where I want to be. So it was like this moment of realization in the last like week where I was just like, yeah, I have no desire to teach at a high level. And I feel like I feel like I'm more of emergency medicine triage spiritual teacher, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was just curious, like if you've had that kind of moment of
I
like, I'm
I
not
am
that.
not a yeah, I am not a mediumship teacher. I know
Right.
that, and I've said that from the start. I will teach. I run a course on how to connect with spirit guides, but on a very, very basic level to
Right.
introduce people to that. I have been able to do this inherently since the moment I popped out the womb. Did I understand it? No. Did I think everyone could do it? Yes. So for me to teach mediumship, I know I can't do that. I just don't have.
And then
I
the
don't have the patience.
responsibility, like the responsibility of doing
Yeah.
it too.
And not everyone should be doing this for a living. There are many people that do it for a living, and many people that are very successful that do it for a living.
Or
And when I
try.
say we put success in different categories. For
Correct.
me, where I just had some feedback on this week's podcast where I talked about death on a very basic level. And I also talked about division on a very basic level and how that we can stop the division just by our own energy or our version of it. And that's where I want to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
I
recognizing this is where I'm supposed to be.
I quite like my little corner of the world and working where I work.
I guess I always knew that's where I wanted to be and that's where I've been,
Yeah.
but like
Mm-hmm.
not to the point where I had this kind of like awakening in the moment of the conversation while it was happening,
Yeah.
and having such like clarity. And I was like, like maybe when I'm like 75 years old and I'm at a place where nobody's gonna care of like what I did or who I was once, like maybe at that level I could teach a little bit deeper if I'm there. But I know where I'm supposed to be, and I kind of feel like I need to be at the place where people are stuck. I need to be at the place where I can help people where they
Which is
may be feeling stagnation. And how do I get the lights back on in their eyes again? How do I do that?
yeah.
Like that's
That's
where I feel
that's
like
what I'm doing. I love it. I really love that part of it. But you teach every day though. I watch you work and I've watched you work and I don't think you know this because I've only told Laurie.
okay,
I watched you work would be 20 something years ago and I've been to many of your shows in Melbourne and I knew I was going to meet you 20 years ago. And I know that's the bizarrest of statements, but watching you and going, I understand now. I
right.
understand what I can do. I understand that I can help people. Being a medium isn't about helping ourselves, it's actually helping other people.
Well, that's what it's supposed to be like, right?
Yeah.
It's like we're just the conduit, the bridge, the phone. Use
Hmm.
whatever analogy you like, right?
Yeah.
Where energy kind of goes across. And I always tell people, be careful of the mediums that make it about themselves.
Yeah. Because it's not, it's never about us. And the word I, when people go use the word I so much I call them performances because they're not educational, they are real performances. That's what makes me go, okay, I don't trust you.
Yeah, I don't like when I see people use like their own name in a reading, like, and they're telling me, John, say
Yeah.
that. I'm like,
Yes.
I could barely get their names. Like, they're going to use their energy
Yeah.
to. So it's just a delivery of how people take how they decide to package what they're getting. And I made a decision a long time ago that I, I, I wanted to make people feel like they were connected to the process. I didn't want to make it feel like they were here and I was here and you can't
Hmm.
question the process. That's not healthy. I don't think that's healthy. So I think by opening it up and saying, here's what I'm getting, here's what it means to me, I'm interpreting it like this.
Yes.
I can very easily take the information and turn it into a conversation. But then it separates the client from their relative even more, right? As soon as I make it a conversation, like, and they're telling me this and they want you to know this, or, if I turn to the side and go, okay, I'm going to tell them that, it removes them from the process of how their loved ones and friends are going to and are already
Yeah.
talking to them.
I like to talk about what I'm being shown in order for them to understand it a little bit better. Um, Someone that has had readings or good experiences will understand that this isn't an exact science. Sometimes
No.
we will misinterpret things, and we will go on down a track that doesn't, isn't right because we're misinterpreting things. But we eventually get there.
We get there. And
We get
sometimes the
there.
validation comes after the fact because it needs to.
Yes, yes. I get a lot of those. I get a lot of the emails after a reading saying, this made sense. I checked it with my mum and she said this, and this. Before we finish up, how have your live events changed over the years, do you think?
So I kind of anchored that question to my newsletter, and I'll explain. When I first started writing a newsletter, the newsletter was called Bridges. And like that part of my career, I felt like I was building a bridge between here and there. And then the next part of my journey was the crossing over part. And that happened, with the television. I think now where I'm at is like, you get all of that. It's like, and then this, right? So it's kind of like when you go to a website, it's like, there's the basic plan. It's like, you get the basic mediumship, the basic JE, and then you get like the JE plus, and then there's the JE max. I feel like I'm now entering the JE max part. And what that means is I'm now giving people, even at the live events, I'm looking for the lesson and the theme. Whereas maybe in the past, in reflection of a live event, I'd be like, wow, there were 3 people who lost dads tonight. Wow, there were 3 suicides tonight. Wow, there were like 2 people who had such and such and so. In reflection, now I'm in the moment of recognizing it. Now I'm in the moment of articulating it and showing it. Now I'm highlighting it for people to see because I feel like I have a better aerial view of the process. So that's where it's deeper. So it's kind of like when I was in high school, junior high school, I had a science project. And for anatomy and physiology, I had the outline of the human body. And then I had transparencies that I would overlay, and it was each system. So the endocrine system, the bone system, the circulatory system, the hormones, all of that were like different overlays, the organs. That's what I feel like when I answer that question. It's layered now. There's a lot of different things. Some people at a live event, they just need a quick validation because they're just needing to know that mom's good. So mom pops in and does that. But this person over there, they're going to be read at the middle of the event. And that person maybe just lost a child. So they need to watch other people get read first. And then what happens with them at the middle of the event? Well, they're not done because the lessons are going to continue for the end of the event with the questions that kind of take place. So, I know now, like if I'm at a theater, I will make sure that I'm picking questions at every level of that theater. And the reason is I want to make sure that energy is being put, my focus, because I know that if I put my energy into a question in that second tier of the theater, as soon as I put my focus there, anybody that's going to come through that night has to work less because I've already put my focus there. And now all they have to do is do this, as opposed to them having to get my attention on the stage. Does that make sense?
I absolutely get it. And I often, and as I said, I'm not doing live events, but I'll often there will be a loop from one reading directly to another when they suddenly stop understanding what I'm giving them and someone is madly waving at me.
That's the bridge.
That's the bridge. And for the first time ever, I read a moderator on one of my live events because I have a moderator and I had never read her on one of those, but this person wouldn't stop coming through and she's like, I'm really sorry, Matilda, that's actually for me.
It happens.
Which, it happens.
So the woman that like will introduce me at my events and kind of runs my company, her name is Kat. And for many years, I wrote a column for New Idea. And I did it for like 5 years. So I did it for a long time. And one of the things that I realized early on is that people ask the same questions over and over again. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to do a reading. So I would do readings and then they would be transcribed in New Idea magazine. So long story short, Kat knows me and my symbols. So she would listen in on the reading and she's typing it up as it's happening. So it's like the reading's done and so's the transcription. And it was like, boom, that's how the article got written. And I can think of at least 2 occasions where the person I'm reading is like, no, no, I don't have that. And then I remember the one night it was like somebody had been murdered, and I'm like, no, somebody's been murdered. They're showing somebody's been murdered. And then she unmuted herself and she's like, yeah, that's for me. And then I have this moment of like, okay, not only do we work together and talk all day long, but we're family. What do you mean somebody was murdered? Like, why do
Why
I not
didn't
know
you do?
that? You know, I was like, why would you not tell me that? And she was like, for a moment, just like this. I was like, all right, valid point.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Because the more we know, the more disadvantaged we are. I always
Oh,
say, I don't
sure.
want to know anything. And you get those people that will come on to a one-on-one reading and they'll automatically want to, and I'm like, stop, please, don't want to know
Yes.
anything. And I have it in all of my confirmation emails and everything. Don't tell me anything because I want to give you a pure reading.
And the other thing that I find trips me up too is when I say something to the person and I'm not even done saying what I'm saying, and they're like, yeah,
Mm,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And it's like, can you mute yourself for a second? Because like I don't want to. I just stop talking.
Just, yeah. Poker face, please. Poker face. Well, if you want to catch John live here in Australia, I will link your website. I will link Evolve TV Plus, which is a great platform
Thank
for
you.
all sorts of learning. And we have Chasing Evil. This will be linked, and where you can find it will be linked, but you will be hooked. I warn you, start reading it or listening to it when you have the time because, yeah, you won't be able to stop.
Thank you. And if anybody in the States or Canada is listening to this, because I know you have fans everywhere, just go to my website. I'm coming all across the United States and Canada as well through
Yes.
the first 5 months of 2026.
Big question, though, that I get asked from a lot of people is when are you going to go to the United Kingdom?
Me,
Yep.
I'm hoping to go back in September of next year. It's been really, really tough getting back there.
But thank you for joining us again here
Thank
at
you.
Beyond This. And
I
I
can't wait to
cannot
see you in
wait.
person.
Yeah, can't wait to meet you. What an amazing interview. I just enjoyed it so much. As I've said before, he's one of those people that you could just talk to for hours and hours. And the fact that I feel like I have met somebody that has a very similar ethos and the way they work to me. I mean, obviously, John's just, phenomenally more successful than I am, but he is just a phenomenal and generous human being. And I was very privileged to have the opportunity to speak to him a second time. The show notes will have all the links that you need to book tickets to see him. Seriously, if you get an opportunity, I am going to be going in Bendigo, and if you get a chance to go and watch him work, it is just a sight to behold, and the peace and understanding and the energy he brings is phenomenal. And Chasing Evil is available. The link, it's available in Australia. I had to wait because I was impatient. I ordered mine from the States, but the link to order in Australia is in the show notes as well. But I also did know it's available on audio. Okay, guys, I'm going to talk about the next couple of months because it's a little bit hairy. October in particular. Now, I know we're halfway through October. The second half of October is going to feel almost bittersweet, as if things are going to be changing really quickly. The weather is going to be horrific, no matter what part of the globe you are in. Now, I've been told today that my predictions for floods in California and the East Coast and New Zealand have happened over the last 48 hours or so. Please stay safe if you are in those areas. Also, the Taylor Swift announcement that she has 2 projects going on to Disney, which is the Eras Tour and the documentary. I predicted that a couple of months ago. I said that there was 2 of something. It's like 2 nights at Vegas or 2 movies or something. That one is happening. Let me talk about the peace deal that's happening in Gaza and Israel at the moment. I have a horrible feeling. Actually, I'm pretty sure that it isn't going to hold. I wish I could say different. Netanyahu has a bee in his bonnet, and he's not going to let it go we may see that fail by the end of October, maybe even the last week of October. I'm really hoping that that's one of those predictions that I'm wrong about. It feels very, very uncomfortable to me, and as if someone's keeping secrets around it. Trump's health is going to be visibly impacted last week of October, early November. We could see him having a physical or a visible incident, something where he's at a press conference or he has to walk somewhere and he falls, slips. His kidneys are under so much pressure right now. I don't think he got good news from his yearly or bi-yearly physical that he had, so we can expect his health to deteriorate. We're going to see some violence this weekend, which is the weekend, I think, of the 18th and 19th of October. Could be the 17th or 18th of October. As I said, it's hairy. I wish I had better news for what is coming up. Halloween feels, I don't feel it's cancelled, but I don't feel like it's going to have the buzz that it usually does in the US. There's going to be a warning put out around Halloween to keep people safe, or a certain area is going to be closed. We're going to see a mass hacking in the next couple of weeks. It feels like it's connected to an IT company. Could be Apple. Could be some panic with Apple. I'm not going to say definitely Apple, but I feel like a big hacking to do with an IT company. And we're going to see some skirmishes on water. So that could be that boats are attacked, or there could be some naval problems. Earthquake, I feel we're looking at the South Pacific. And I also want to say that you may get a considerable amount of rumblings in California over the next week. What are we on? We're on the 14th today. We could see some rumblings in California. And I want to say a major incident in Thailand. Wasn't very joyful today, was it? I do apologise, but I only give you what I get. All right, my loves, thank you for joining me today. Again, thank you to John Edward for being so generous with your time and energy. And I will see you all next week. Take care.